Ya Allah Bemaduti El Hejit Shepsis Rea to Ali Aliasu Alias Alias. Peace and love, family. Peace and love, family. You know, we got a grand measure to bring on the manifest, a late night library of archives and wisdom session. And I want to start doing this here and there. And a lot of this is going into, you know, some of the information that certain people consider, you know, forbidden knowledge, that's not often spoke of, you know. And, you know, when we deal with knowledge from a Moorish standpoint, we deal with knowledge from a universal standpoint. So I just want to shed a little light on our family, you know, in this special measure that I have to bring forth. Some may be familiar, some may not be familiar, but all is well, and you're welcome to chime in. I will be putting a link, you know, in here as well. So I'm gonna do that right now too from the onset. And what we're gonna be dealing with is a particular work that I have to give our family some deeper understanding of the Piscean records, and what's really being said that our people don't have any idea, most of them don't have any idea about. And it's all referring to yourself. You often hear me talking about the book of creation and going within oneself, and being able to study the self and so forth and so on. So this is dealing strictly with the science of the self based upon these translations that they have out here and what's really being hidden from the people. So we're going to crack the code tonight and go into some drawings. I ain't going to be real long. I want to make these measures as short as possible. But by the same token, I want to make them fulfilling as well. So let me give you what it is that I have to bring forth, rising, giving praises to the great God, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to the ancestors, honors to Noble Drew Ali. I want to go into this particular text. I'm going to start with this and we'll keep dropping these videos, here and there. But we won't stop until we exhaust the full essence of the measure. This is called God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. And this is going to give you the history. This was actually written, if you don't believe it, by doctors. They were involved with the writing of this particular esoteric work. God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. And it's going to blow your mind if you ain't never been through this special information. You see, Dr. George W. Carey and Inez Eudora Perry, right? They're also the authors of The Wonders of the Human Body and the Chemistry of Life. Now, there are other books outside of this one that go into this same teaching. But this is one that is very extensive. I actually have the copies over there behind me in my library, in the paper form. But they do have these books, and you can see they were actually published in 1920. And we're going to show you what's really being hidden behind, the scriptures that a lot of people call biblical. See, a lot of people speculate and say, oh, the Bible is esoteric, but they never go into saying exactly what's being said. So this book is going to open up some of those hidden things that a lot of people, like I say, like to call forbidden knowledge. But we don't keep no secrets over here. So we don't hold back anything. So this book was copyrighted according to the authors by God in the beginning, right? And tells about the word of God without which not anything was made. Now you always hear me say, as it is above, so it is below, as it is within, so it is without. And that's what this particular text, is dedicated to. It says, okay, dedicated to the God in thee, O woman and O man. That is the firm principle of this particular work. It says, thou art God, man. You see? In other words, when you speak of, or speak to the spirit in man and spirit in woman, you are the God, man. I always break the word man down as a master of all nature. If you Moorish, master of Allah's nature, M-A-N. And so this is dedicated to the God in thee, O woman and O man. So keep that in mind as we go through this work. This ain't your average information. You're going to hear some names you're familiar with, but do not confuse this with Christianity as you know it. This is the table of contents here in this particular work. So you can find this PDF anywhere. A lot of these things are free, these ancient books, classical books anyway. They're not really ancient, they're classical, but they're based on ancient information. And this is the underlying theme that you're going to find in this work that is taught at an esoteric level. So this is what they're hiding from you. My duty as a hierophant is to reveal these things to you. You see, so that you may have a clear conception of what it is you're dealing with. You know, even our brother, who the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told the people, you know, about the Bible being symbolic, you know, and a few thirds prophecy, you know, allegorical, and, you know, all of that, right? We teach in the Moorish paradigm on many different levels of understanding. So if you haven't heard this, you're going to learn tonight. Like I say, this is a late night library archives and wisdom session, and we going up through there. Some people going to be blown when they hear this. Do not mistaken these things for the common information that you get. So it says, you know, it gives you little the contents of the book, you know, the redemption, the ultimate guide of humanity, the kingdom at hand, you know, the books rejected by the Council of Nicaea, you know, names, marvelous story of Joseph and Mary, which is not what you think it is. It tells the story, but it ain't telling it the way you think it is, you know. And I learned this stuff years ago. You know, I just want to share some of this with our family so it give you a higher rate of vibration, so to speak. Man was made upright. You know, the eternity of perfection, Sarah and Abraham. That is not the Sarah and Abraham. It's the same story, but it ain't. The exegesis, the interpretation is off the charts, fam. It ain't got nothing to do with what you thinking about. So this ain't got nothing to do with browbeating you over the head with no religion. I'm gonna let you know that from the beginning. It's letting you know what has been hidden and what these people are practicing behind closed doors. And these are doctors now that wrote this, so it's a lot of this that is actually involved with the self. The word of God revealed, the explanation of the turning the water into wine, John the Baptist physiologically explained. See, that's the key. This book is primarily based on a lot of physiology, and the exegesis is dealing with physiology. You know, breaking down the body, you know, according to the book. So the body has representations of these particular personages within yourself. That's what it's dealing with. John the Baptist physiologically explained the plagues of Egypt in the human body. What was the word of God that came to the prophets? And I'm going to go easy with this. I ain't going to rush through it because we can always come back and go deeper into it. And like I say, we're going to have some people get involved. You know, we put the link out there. We're going to put that there so people can actually get involved with this demonstration. We can really build on it. So the Great Pyramid, Isaiah, the optic thalamus, the central or the single eye, the statement by a Greek professor, the wives and children of Jacob, all of this having to do with your body. You see, the solar plexus prophecies fulfilled, the killing of the fatted calf and cap, which is actually a letter, the Antichrist, all within your body. The Ribla that made the womb in mankind the bridge of life, sacred books of the East, the mystery of Santa Claus revealed, the science of the leap year, the revelation of Hermes, the secret doctrine, why reincarnate, the lake of fire and brimstone, the physical regeneration, because that's what this real book is generated, you know, to basically generate you, resurrect you, so to speak. The 13 United States seal, Woodrow Wilson, Daniel in the Lion's Den, Noah's Ark, and the animals, all within the body. Mistranslation of scripture, Joshua commanding the sun and the moon to stand still. Then it has the glossary, of course. And it starts off with this special mention. Listen to this. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The meaning of glory, the tree of life, the only cause of old age. Samson, 22nd chapter of Revelation in the first and second verses, crucified between two thieves, all within the body, family. These things are going on within you. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Dormant brain cells, children, the Psalms of David. He that ruleth his own house. Enoch walked with God and was not. Jewel and the lotus, the Kundalini fire, the human automobile, the pneumogastric nerve tree, and the Holy Ghost, the Son of Man. All of this is within your body. We ain't talking about preaching those sermons to you now. So I'm telling you, this ain't what you heard if you thinking that this dealing with religion as you know it. This is beyond religion. Yea, who have followed me in the regeneration, to him that overcometh. This is knowledge to be gained in order that you may learn how to heal yourself, family. That's what it's really dealing with. Mentally, physically, and spiritually. So it states here in 1920, the revolutionary planet of Uranus entered the zodiacal sign of Pisces. The fishes in January 1920, the Uranus is from the Greek word meaning heaven, right? Pay attention to the language here because it's going to be important. The hour has struck that opens the door for a new dispensation for man. And the standing prophecy, proclaimed, trumpeted, tongue down through the ages, is now being fulfilled. The old order is dying amidst its worshipers. Gods loosen the thunders and shake the world. Across the lurid sky, the warbirds scream. Earth millions die, fear and woe unutterable. Unutterable. The fires of purification are lighted. Into the cosmic melting pot has been cast hate, race prejudice, selfishness, and the devils of greed. The towers of superstition and tyranny are falling. The thrones and scepters of kings lie scattered and crushed along the highway of nations. Pride is fallen from its insecure pinnacle of shame. The rich are terror-stricken. Their silver has been cast into the street. Their gold has been removed from them. The merchants of the earth weep and mourn, for no man buyeth their merchandise. The churches are in panic. The liquor power rages. The gambler is terror-stricken. The grafting politician seeks a hiding place and finds none. The briber flees when no man pursueth. The priest and preacher pray, but no help comes, for they too must be judged. The harlot alone seems unafraid, because she is not a hypocrite, and has heard the words, the harlots will enter the kingdom before you. Mankind has gone to the limit of animalism. The soul walks forth naked and ashamed. It is high noon of the judgment day. It's written in 1916, So it already there, you know where we going. This thing is finna get real deep, family. It's so we gonna give it to them, family. Yeah, question. If you want to jump on the link, you welcome. We're gonna open it up and we can have a discussion on this. This is powerful, very powerful. It ain't a measure where we got to get into agreement and disagreement or none of that right there. This is actually, we finna open up the seals, so to speak. This is what they've been hiding from y'all, in secret societies and all that stuff there. We the revealers of the light over here. So it says redemption, the ultimate goal of humanity. Taoism, man consisting of a trinity of spirit, mind and body coming forth from the eternal, and afterward putting off desire re-enters the glory of Tao. Brahmanism, man's inner self is one with the self of the universe, and to that universe and to that unity it must return in the fullness of time. Buddhism, man fundamentally divine is held in three worlds by desire. Purification from desire leads the man to nirvana. Hebrewism, man came into being through emanation from the will of the king, therefore is divine. Egyptian teaches the divinity of man, Osiris as his source. Zoroastrianism, man is a spark of the universal flame to be ultimately united with this source. Orphic, man has in him potentially, the sum and substance of the universe. Christian, Man made in the image of God, body, soul, and spirit of Trinity. So what they are showing you is that through all these teachings here, and there are many more, these are just the ones they chose to mention. You know, they basically are saying the same thing on an esoteric level, you know, unbeknownst to many. You know, all of them have a measure that's basically talking about returning back to the source. So let's get into this first portion called the kingdom at hand. It says, man, remember, master of all nature, master of Allah's nature, however you want to look at it, right? Is within one step of his ideal, the ultimate goal of his desires, that realm of freedom where he will no longer be subject to law, but being led by the Spirit will realize that he himself is an operator and an attribute of the law. Man is law in action. Now, it ain't strange they say that, because you will hear us in our Moorish paradigm tell you, because they ask us, like, what's the difference between the word Muslim and Muslim? And we'll tell you that a Muslim is one who submits to the will of Allah. And a Muslim, the way we teach it, is the will of Allah. So instead of submitting to the will, we conform to the will. You know, because our teaching tell us that. Conform to the will. So deific will is what we're talking about. Deific will has to do with the unity of God and man. You see? And that teaching is actually taught in all those doctrines that were just mentioned. You know, at essence, is taught, you know, in the true teachings of Yeshua, the true teachings of Muhammad, the true teachings of Buddha, Confucius, and so forth and so on. See, this is where we get into what we call real Islamism. You see? But it says man is law in action. So that's that will in action, law. It says, will man now take the final step into complete liberty and become a God, or continue to eat of the husk of dual concept and still cower beneath the lash of precedent and authority? There is no salvation or regeneration for man as long as he believes in vicarious atonement. The man who needs saving by that process is not worth the price. Recognition of eternal unity will save man from the idea he needs saving. You hear that? Recognition of eternal unity. That means eternal unity with the source will save man from the idea that he needs to be saved, basically, because it will reconcile him to his place and mission in the plan, the great necessity. It will reveal to him his true kinship to the causeless cause, the beginningless beginning, and he will know that he is an attribute of universal energy from which all forms, thoughts, motions, sounds, colors, and so-called good and evil proceed. In the full light of this wisdom, man will not search for personal saviors, nor quibble about the meaning of the words of men who died thousands of years ago. Jesus Christ, truth and life, forever preaches the sermon in the ear of man. Lo, I am with you now. He that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh, the same is the Antichrist. Now, when it's saying this ain't talking about Jesus Christ, the man, coming in, you know, flesh as you know it, but it's actually talking about the Jesus Christ coming in your flesh. You see what I'm saying? This is what they are alluding to right here. Not a man of 2,000 years ago, but in your flesh, because all this is dealing with the body. It says, only the spiritually blind look for the coming of the truth or life, the Christ who is ever present, or for the coming of a kingdom which is already at hand. When ye pray for a thing, know that ye have it now. If we accept a certain statement uttered as an ultimatum by someone who lived in the dim past, we may be called upon to reconcile the utterance with another opinion spoken, a word by the same person, which seems to contradict previous statements in which we have placed our trust. These persons being dead cannot be asked for an explanation in regard to the seeming contradiction. If they could, they might respond as Walt Whitman did when a critic hinted that the good gray poet contradicted himself. Do I contradict myself? Then I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. We must consider the facts that the opinions uttered by men in past ages extend over a period of years during which time and empires rose and fell. New concepts of life due to planetary and zodiacal changes obtain recognition. Thus, radical changes occurred in the social, religious, scientific, and industrial world. Viewing the question in this light, need we wonder that the seers and sages and saints and scientists of the past should sometimes contradict themselves? Are we today so very consistent? Do we not enact what we call sacred laws, immediately violate them and carry the case to the court of the last resort and get the sacred law repealed? He says, we have had a high and low of tariff and vitalism. It says in gold standard. And our great statesmen valiantly upheld the free coinage of silver in the year of 1895. And in 1896, these same captains of finance declared through the public free press that free coinage of silver would destroy civilization, tear down the pillars of Hercules, and wrench the stars from the cosmic thrones. We have contradicted ourselves in opinion of the earth's shape, the distance to the sun, the origin and operation of electricity, the cause of light, the divisibility of the elemental gases and the circulation of the blood, the reality of hell and the devil and other subjects too numerous to mention. Then shall we forever wrangle over the contradictory statements of dead men who wrote in their day as best they might with the light and data at their command, with no thought that people in future ages will war to the death or live with hate in their hearts for their fellows who differ with them in baptism, the size of Noah's ark, or whether a prophet swallowed a fish or a fish swallowed a prophet. So much for the old world belief that the scriptures, writings, are records of men and women in places in geographical, historical, etc. These wonderful statements are fables, parables, allegories dealing with the chemical, physiological, anatomical, and astrological operations of the human body, fearfully and wonderfully made. So what they're saying is in most of these translations that we have, they're dealing with physiological interpretations. And this is how it was put out there, so you can really find this in all of the scriptures, because those who consider themselves secret societies or mystics, they allude to this a lot of times. That's the real hidden teaching that a lot of people don't teach, and they call this throwing pearls to swines if you give this to most people, because most people that are hell-bent, so to speak, on reading a book in the literal form, they will basically scoff at this truth once we begin to bring it out. Great are the symbols of being, but that which is symbol is greater. Vast the create and behold, but vaster the inward creator. And this is by Richard Relif, right? Now, it goes in, let me see if anybody trying to get in too, because I don't want nobody sitting in the bite. Okay. So it goes on, it says the books rejected by the Council of Nicaea and other ancient books of the Quran, Persia, Hebrew meaning, Passover, Esther, Solomon's Egyptian Book of the Dead, Eve, Enoch, Seth, Seven Book of Moses, St. Thomas, the Doubter, Nicodemus, Tahotep, the oldest book known, the Kabbalah. Again, the researches of such theological scholars as James Legge, LLD, the first professor of Chinese at Oxford University, Professor W.M. Jennings, PhD, the Honorable Clement Allen of the Royal Asiatic Society, besides several hundred who might be named, embracing the leaders of thought along the lines of original sources, all agree that hundreds if not thousands of ancient manuscripts, tablets, and carvings, indubitably prove that all races of all people have ever inhabited the earth have striven as best they could to leave records of the chemistry and physiology of their own bodies. So it's basically saying a lot of these manuscripts, though looked at on the historical level, have a lot more meaning to do with the body. So it says science, Egyptology, Indo-Iranian, Chinese, Japanese, Persian, Sanskrit, all forever strove to solve the riddle of the human body. 700 years BC, we have the Shu King, China's oldest book, the Shi King, 600 BC, and the Yi King in 1143 BC. Then came Confucius, 551 to 478 BC. The writings, statement, philosophy, and symbols of these writings of truth being corroborates our 66 witnesses in every detail. The writers of this book have in their possession a library of ancient scriptures referred to above and know whereof they speak. But as printing and bookmaking is well nigh prohibited by costs, we feel that we are not justified in lengthy quotations. Again, nothing really new can be added after the ne plus ultra statement, there is no other way under heaven whereby ye may be saved except Jesus, Christian, and crucified. And this is not talking about the crucifixion that you're thinking about. It is not talking about a man outside of yourself. Let that be known. However, for the information of our readers, we will give a table of contents, volume 14 of the Sacred Books of the Early Literature of the East, entitled The Great Rejected Books. The Old Testament Apocrypha, the books of Adam and Eve. I actually have that book. The Lives of Adam and Eve, the Apocalypse of Moses, the Slavonic Book of Eve. Many of you may have not have heard of these books. The writings attributed to Enoch, the great prophetic book of Enoch. I got that. I have, there are different books of Enoch as well. The Lost Books of Noah, the Apocalypse of Baruch. I have a book called The Other Bible. It's up there. I had it for years. But it has his vision of heaven, the story of Ahikar, the old Armenian version, the New Found Ancient Book, the New Testament Apocrypha, the Gospels of Christ's Childhood. I have that up there as well. The Proto-Evangelium, or Original Gospel of James, I got that. The Gospel of Thomas the Doubter, I got that. The Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, got that. An Arabic Gospel of the Infancy, got that. The Gospels of Nicodemus, the Greek Gospel of Nicodemus, a later Gospel Herod of Hell, the Acts of Pilate, and the Letters of Pilate. I basically got all of them. They all in the book. And this is where they go into a small glossary to let you know what they're referring to here. Let me see again if you may have somebody that's trying to get in on the link. The link is in the chat, family, if you want to come in. Like I said, this is an open discussion. You're going to learn a lot in a minute. So these are names, and listen to this. Listen to the way it breaks them down. It's esoteric, but it's dealing with the body. It's the information in here that will allow you to become a governor of your body and heal your body, if you listen well. So it says names will be explained without alphabetical order. The object being to show that the 66 books of the whole book of the Holy Book was 66 statements by 66 different writers about the same identical subject, the human body, its chemical operation and planetary positions and ping. It says to create and bring into physical manifestation the visible universe. So Adam, they give as red earth or flow of the spirit or energy dammed up. All these definitions going to come back as we go through these particular works. Like I said, I'm going to go a little bit at a time. I ain't going to try to go through the whole book or too much. We're going to go step by step, and I'm going to come back, with another one of these late night library of archives and wisdom sessions, and we'll go deeper. Like I say, feel free to come in. We can discuss this demonstration. For those who are mature in their mind, mature enough to go here. Eve, the mother of all living, which is ether or pure spirit. These are esoteric definitions now, but they also correspond with the regular definitions as well. Also means mother of God, water, fluid, Essie. Cain, what is guiding acquisition, a spear, a smith, a worker. Abel, transitoriness, right? Breath, vapor, moisture, absorbed, killed by Cain. Now we also have seed, which is Seth. Seth is seed, seedling, or germ. This is the seed that come forth from us, brothers, that is talking about. And then it says, man, see Adam, woman, womb, and or womb in man. Mankind, the regenerative womb or manger in the solar plexus. So when it say womb, it's talking about the solar plexus region. This is known as the manger. You see Bethlehem also for house of bread. So that's the house of bread, right? The solar plexus, which is the region of the stomach. So it says Nod, the land of Nod, which is flight, which is Cain absorbed and killed Abel, which is moisture. So absorption, basically, was what killed Abel, which is moisture. And vegetation, sprang up, shoot movement. That's another definition for Nod, the land of Nod. Wife, marriage of earth and water. Joshua, Jehovah in salvation, son of Nun, a fish. That's also dealing with a function in the body. Moses, drawn from the water, fish. They pretty much correspond with each other. Abraham means high father, a father of elevation. Also, where Abram means high father and father of elevation, Abraham means father of the multitude. All dealing with activity that's taking place within the body on a physiological level. So Aaron is the enlightened Buddha, or third eye, right? Hor, or the mountain of Aaron, is situated on the east side of the great valley of Araba, the highest and most conspicuous of the whole range of the sandstone mountains of Edom, have enclosed beneath it in its east side the mysterious city of Petra, right? It goes on in definitions. What is Petra? Petra is rock, a city south of Jericho. What is Edom? Edom is red, or Edom is Oduma, or Udumi, pardon self, the pituitary body. Jacob, circled, heel catcher, lie in wait, applied to the 12 zodiacal signs in astrology and to the solar plexus in physiology. So that's your above and below. So in other words, them 12 zodiacal signs have a correspondence with the body on the level of physiology. And I'm going to show you some charts on this stuff right here. In fact, I'm going to do it right now so that our family can see what's going on. Let me pull this up right here. So when I say these charts have a bearing on the body, and having this knowledge is actually giving you insight of being able to heal yourself of different ailments, if you know your body well, right? So watch this. These charts are everywhere, family. Okay, you can just type that in, and it ain't just limited to this. This is actually, it goes way beyond this here. Okay. I'm using these charts so that y'all will basically be able to identify with it because I'm already familiar with it. This is one chart that's just dealing with man in general, and it show you what all these different things correspond with. For example, once you understand how all these signs correspond to a particular portion in the body, then you can master what are called the cell salts and give your body the minerals that it needs in order to heal itself. This is what I was actually looking for here, though. If you notice on this here, Aries represents the head, Taurus represents the throat, Gemini, represents the heart region, so to speak. And then you have Cancer, you got Leo, you got all these different signs. It start back and it talks about the pre-Adamite, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. That's actually Libra too, by the way. And then it has Aquarius and Pisces. So all of these things on the esoteric level, and notice this is actually a Rosicrucian chart right here that they be working with. The structure is symbolic to the Arga. The Arga is just another word from art. You see, forms of the exterior and interior of the ark. You see, from the description of Moses. So once you understand, these particular charts and how they correspond with the body, it gets even more interesting. They call it the mysterium here. See, so you, in all actuality, are the ark, but you don't even know it. You see? So that's why, and this is where them teachings get universal. And they basically mean the same thing for the people that study this information. While you are just studying the book and looking at the historical narrative, these things refer to something else to those who are behind closed doors, in these different secret societies. And, like when you speak of the 12 cranial nerves in your head, how they are synonymous with the 12 disciples, they also represent a reflection of the zodiacal circle as well. And notice it's speaking in the solar plexus because you have 12 ganglionic nerves that sit there. Those also correspond to the same information. And based upon the teaching that you teach, this same story is being told. So those 12 that represent the heavens in the brain are your 12 cranial nerves that allow your body to function, so to speak, with motor activity, so to speak. These special nerves are known according to the text that you study. So, for example, in the Piscean records of the Bible, you deal with the 12 tribes of Israel. If you're dealing with the Old Testament, then you deal with, the 12 disciples of Yehoshua. If you're dealing with the New Testament, you deal with the 12 imams. If you're dealing with Islam, you see what I'm saying? You deal with the 12 Neteru of ancient Kemet if you're dealing with Kemet. So all of these things can be told in this particular way. And this is what we call lofty teachings that are not taught in the public. Some people have touched on them or reaped to teach them in a scanty way, but they ain't been this deep where I'm taking you right now. You see? This is the real thing that's being taught in secret societies behind the closed doors. So when you think they talking about, Jesus and, all these different individuals, they preaching, those who are initiated into certain information, they hearing a different thing than the people that's there listening, thinking these are, focusing just on a physical history. You see? So it says Leah, the first wife of Job, presented in astrology by several of the zodiac signs, namely Reuben, Libra, Simeon, Scorpio, Levi, Sagittarius, Judah, Capricorn, Issachar, Gemini, Zebulun, Cancer, Dinah, Leo. The name means in Hebrew, weary, weak, slow to action, inferior. So when you are in this special state, that's basically the word that's referred to here. But it says C-cut Rachel, which is the second wife of Jacob, and Ewe, which is mother of Joseph and Benjamin, represented in astrology by Virgo for Joseph and Benjamin, having a deeply esoteric significance. It represents the product. And you'll find out what that means in a minute. Benjamin, son of the right hand, a son of my old age, called first by his mother, son of my sorrow. He was the only child to be born in Palestine. It says the Holy Land. In Smith's Bible Dictionary, we find this ark was in Benjamin. To esoteric students, this statement is significant. And I just showed you, what it said about the ark a few minutes ago. Even the Ark of the Covenant. Now, these same teachings are actually found in the Moorish Holy Quran, Circle 7 as well, unbeknownst to many. It says to esoteric student, this statement is significant. Plainly speaking, Benjamin is the same as Jesus and refers to the seed or son that redeems, right? Palestine, the land of sojourners, country of Israel, a holy land. Ararat, the holy land. Abba, father, God. Absalom, father of peace. Adda, Adea, Adi, ornament, whom God has adorned, refers to the pituitary body. Adonai, Lord. Zoheleth, the stone, serpent. The rolling stone, the serpent stone, the stone of the conduit. Gilgal, a circle or rolling away, the place where the 12 stones were set up, the place of the Passover. A hot depressed district, says Smith's Bible Dictionary, refers in anatomy to the 12th dorsal vertebra, at which place the semilunar ganglion connects. At this point, seed or arc where it enters Jordan or the spinal cord. Now, for you to really have a real good understanding, family, you need to get a copy too of Gray's Anatomy, if you don't know these terminologies, because a lot of this stuff was based off of Gray's Anatomy. I got a copy, I think I paid like $7 from Barnes and Noble. It's real big though, real big, with terminology dealing with the body. So that will help too. This is stuff that you have to study deeply. You don't just read it and, you got to really study this in order to get to where you're able to understand it like I can understand it, because I've been dealing with it for years. So it says Jordan, the descender, the flowing river, a river that has never been navigable, flowing into a sea that has never known a port, about 200 miles long, rising from the roots of Anti-Lebanon to the head of the Dead Sea, the river of God. See Smith's Bible Dictionary and Anatomy, the spinal cord, the great nerve which supplied with fluid from the claustrum in the cerebrum. That's in the brain for those who don't know what the claustrum is. In the cerebrum. It's dealing with the central nervous system too, by the way. It said Jordan was crossed over by Joshua, the fish, son of Nun. Smith's Bible Dictionary as Joshua and Jesus mean the same. We see by this, right, that this is the place of baptism of Jesus in the body, inside of you. So there's a baptism that takes place within you. There's a river of Jordan within you. There are 12 disciples within you, God within you, and all in the body now. It says only 2 fords are mentioned in the Bible. These in anatomy are the end of the spinal cord at the 12th dorsal vertebra, at the base of the skull. And this is where they say the seed is often crucified. But it says, Smith also says the true source of the Jordan is underground in Paella, which means vial or bowl, on the right hand side. It is from this cave that the Jordan commences its course above ground. Compare this description with the anatomy of the head, and its meaning becomes clear. Smith tells us that the upper part of the slope is alive with bursting fountains and gushing streams, and found their way into the Jordan. So in other words, your brain is supplying the body with fluids, right? And these fluids basically revitalizes and regenerates the body, but if, it's some type of stopping up or damage, being done, then these streams don't flow properly. The blood becomes toxic, therefore leading to illness or ailment in the body. So again, that's the Jordan River, your spinal cord. It says these in anatomy refer to the glands in the brain that connect with the spinal cord. Read Smith's Bible Dictionary. the wonderful description of this river, right? Gennesaret, the gardens of the prince, a crescent-shaped or moon-shaped plain on the western shore of the lake of Gennesaret, which is also the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is a semilunar ganglion through which the seed or Jesus passes to reach the spinal cord, right? The Jordan enters in at the north and passes out at the south. It abounds in fish, and that's actually talking about the place of elimination and defecation, so to speak. But it says daughter or bath, anything regarded as feminine. Galilee, a circle or circuit. Nazareth, a shoot, a sprout, a twig. Right? Capernaum, village of Nahum, consolation. Cana, place of reeds, lawns. Jericho, place of fragrance. The cerebellum. So it's assigning all these names that you think are places and people to portions in the body. That's why I say you got to really study this. Now, this is where it begins to get comprehensive to you. Because some of all those terminologies that I gave you is going to be used here, but it's going to be easier for you to understand it when they begin to tell the story. So they're talking about Joseph and Mary right now. You're going to find out who Joseph and Mary represent within you. And you're going to find out who Jesus represent within you. So it says the marvelous story of the journey of Joseph and Mary to Jerusalem to pay their taxes, physiologically explained. So this is going to be explained according to physiology. The exegesis or interpretation that's given going to be dealing with the breakdown of your body. You see? It says on either side of the thalamus, and that's, you know, the optic thalamus is in the center of the brain. If you don't know what the thalamus is, I'm going to show you real quick. Thalamus, right? I'm going to show you what the thalamus is so you know what we're talking about here. I'm going to tell you the definition of it first. It says thalamus, from the Greek, which means chamber, is a large mass of gray matter located in the dorsal part of what they call the nescephalum, which is a division of the forebrain. The nerve fibers where they project out of the thalamus to the cerebral cortex in all directions, allowing hub-like exchanges of information. So if you ever looked at that maze-like material in the brain, look like designs and patterns, this is where a lot of your cerebral cortex, you know, your cerebral messages are being sent. So this is almost like, you know, what conduit is to electricity, so to speak. Your electrical signals travel through that. So it says it has several functions as relaying of sensory signals and including motor signals to the cerebral cortex. And it goes deep into it, but the main thing, the thalamus is the chamber. This chamber is actually the chamber of initiation, you know, of raising your consciousness, meaning the purer the body is, the more clear your consciousness is, the more you're able to remember things. You know, you can actually deal with self-healing. So this is the true chamber of initiation where every adept becomes an adept. That's why you'll hear us say it. Your adept chamber is above your neck. So I want to show you a picture of this, though, what the thalamus looked like. I can show it to you. It's always been, they got a lot of charts on this. See, that's your thalamus right there. Right here. Often you will see this depicted as the eye of Heru, because there's a lot of didactic art of Kemet that can actually be placed on the brain, you know, in different parts of the body. You know, I could go into all of that, but I don't want to go there right now. You know, I'm just trying to locate the thalamus. You know, this is the center of your brain, basically. This is the true chamber, you know, and through this chamber, you know, pituitary and the pineal gland becomes activated. And that's what it's going to get into in a minute. You know, all of these, it takes these to be working in order for those 12 dorsal vertebrae that control all of your motor functions to be working. You see? So you have, it's just a powerful demonstration. You got to know yourself. We know everything about ourselves, but we haven't studied our bodies. You know, so some people won't get this because they don't want to study themselves. They want to keep believing these things is just mere messages dealing with a history. But let us go on. It says on either side of the thalamus in the head is a gland known in physiology as the pineal. It says on the posterior and the pituitary on the anterior side of the thalamus. The pineal is a cone shape, right? And secretes a yellow or golden fluid. The pituitary body opposite of it is ellipsoid in shape and contains a whitish secretion like milk. The fluids that are found in both these bodies come from the same source, namely the claustrum, which means barrier or cloister, and is referred to as the cloister for every good reason, a very good reason, pardon self, that a precious and holy thing is secreted and secluded there. Saint Claus or Santa Claus is another term for this precious fluid. You know, Santa Claus is said to bring gifts down the chimney, you know, and this claustrum, you know, basically brings the gifts of these fluids down, you know, from this special organ in the brain, and it replenishes the brain. You see, it gives gifts to the children, you see, which represent the cells in the body, you know, the different organs in the body, and so forth and so on. Merry Christmas in mass, which is indeed a holy gift in the body of each one of us. It says the precious fluid which flows down from the claustrum separates part going into the pineal gland and part to the pituitary body, and these being special laboratories of the head differentiate the fluid from the claustrum, and it takes on the colors above mentioned, one like milk and the other, you know, like a gold-like substance, a yellow-like substance. And then the pineal gland becomes yellow and has electric properties. The pituitary body, having the milk-like fluid, has magnetic properties. These two glands are the male and female, Joseph and Mary of the physical body, and are the parents of the spiritual son born in the solar plexus of each human being commencing about the age of 12. So if you know about that change during the time of what they call puberty, so to speak, in the man, you know, Joseph and Mary, you know, which actually represent the pineal and pituitary gland, working in conjunction with the claustrum and the thalamus, so to speak. You know, this fluid that comes down from the brain, down the spinal cord, you know, through the solar plexus region, gives birth to the Jesus within the body, which represents the seed. That's where they're going with it. I'm going to give it to you like that. So Joseph and Mary birthed the seed by means of the fluid that comes down the spine again and pretty much saturates the region of the solar plexus, or what we call Bethlehem, the house of bread, the manger. You see? I told you it get good now. So it says these two glands are the male and female, Joseph and Mary of the physical body, and are parents of the spiritual son born in the solar plexus of each human being commencing about the age of 12. This yellow and white material, which is the milk and honey referred to in the Bible, the children of Israel having been given the promise of a return to this land, flowing with milk and honey, at last reaches the solar plexus via semilunar ganglia. And if you don't know what the semilunar ganglia is, these are actually what they call, in most cases, different points. I'm going to show it to you real quick. It's always good to show you better than tell you. You know, but it actually has to do with the nervous system. So this is all dealing with applying these things to yourself and being able to heal yourself. For those who may be asking, well, what all this gonna do? Or what can I do with this? This knowledge will give you the ability to heal yourself. That's what it's about. You see? Yeah, so there you go. You know, when you go to talking about your gangly, it's dealing with all your nerves and so forth and so on. Motor functions mainly. So let me go here because I want to really get through this here. They also speak of the Bethlehem of the physical body, again being the house of bread, the solar plexus. In Hebrew, Bethlehem means house. Beth of bread, Lahem, right? It says, I am the bread of life, said the allegorical Jesus. In the solar plexus is a thimble-shaped depression, a cave or manger. And in this deposited the psychophysical seed, or holy child born of this immaculate conception. This psychophysical seed is called fish, and it has the odor of a fish. It's talking about the semen or the seed within man, right? It says it's formed in the midst of the waters of pure water. Jesus is a fish in the midst of the water, St. Augustine. Before birth, the human fetus floats like a fish in the fluids by which it is surrounded. And it says, and as it is with the child formed on the generative plane, so it is with the spiritual child born in the solar plexus in Bethlehem. Joseph and Mary, by furnishing the material for the spiritual child, which was to redeem the child of the body formed in generation, paid the symbolical redemption money. So they're saying this is basically like the 10% of the tithes. Once those organs secrete the fluid, you know, the Joseph and Mary bring about the milk and the honey, you know, that brings this Jesus into birth in this manger of Bethlehem. You know, this is also a symbol of the redemption money because it redeems the body, basically. It says Holy Ghost, Greek for breath. The breath descended the pneumogastric nerve into the solar center, enters the manger where Joseph and Mary are. It says, and where is Jesus, the seed literally conceived by the Holy Ghost? And they're talking about all that which comes from on high, the colostrum, because dealing with the top of the brain, you know what we always call the soft spot? You're going to see they refer to that as a heaved up place. That's the real heaven. Your crown chakra is what some people like to call it, the lotus. So it says, God hath made man upright. It says, but they sought out many inventions. There's an automatic procedure within the human body which, if not interfered with, will do away with sickness, trouble, sorrow, and death, as stated in the Bible. See, now you're seeing why this stuff is made applicable to the self, but it's a process now. This don't just happen. It's things that you have to do to make this happen. You know, it will bring the fountain of youth to you. You know, it will heal you of all sickness that you may be suffering from. You see, not in a spooky way, but in a real way. So truly, mankind or the natural man seek many ways and means to prevent the upright, perfect, or automatic way from accomplishing that whereunto it was sent. So it means that the way that we have been living our lives, we have cut off the cycle or the circulation of this particular fluid being able to be regenerated. And this is why the body begins to decay from illness and sickness, and, you know, one's health begins to fail. But it says the natural man forever seeks pleasurable sensation, which is at enmity with God. And this is basically talking about people who like to, you know, spill their seed. You remember one brother got killed, you know, for spilling his seed recklessly. So all of this is really going into the aspect of man being able to deal with what we call abstinence. You know, being able to fast from, you know, physical activity with a woman. You know what I mean? Being able to do this, that don't mean that you don't have your needs or whatever the case may be, but you have to be able to learn a prolongation, you know, and give your body rest, you know, and don't be just out there acting crazy, laying down with different women, being promiscuous or whatever the case may be. because it actually does damage to the body. If you know anything about boxing, most time when they boxing, they have to abstain from, a lot of that activity because it takes away from the body. You see what I'm saying? It takes away from the clarity in the mind and everything. You see? So this take discipline now. This process that we talk about, this ain't for the weak, family. You got to sacrifice something in order to get something. So physical sensation, the pleasures of sin for a season, or limited duration referred to by Paul under the law or below the solar plexus. He that is led by the Spirit is not under the law. In other words, the law of being led by the little head, if you know what I mean. So it says the 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Shin, or Shin lacks one of the complete alphabet, which is Tav, the 22nd letter meaning the cross. Herewith are given a few of Greek and Hebrew characters that have been translated sin or fallen short. Hebrew, Asham, Het, Ket, Hata, Avon, which is translated iniquity more than 200 times, means conceived in sin or brought forth in iniquity or sin. Pesha, or Pasha. In other words, when you just living wastefully, you basically conceiving, or wasting your seed, in a sinful way, basically. And that's going to do damage to the body in the long run. It says in Greek, we find this word written as hamartia, protonatron, anamartitus, anomia, anamos, parabomia. Any act coming under the meaning of sin retards or prevents the automatic action of the seed, which, if not interfered with, lifts up a portion, 1/10 of life essence, or a secretion that constantly flows down the spinal cord, a straight and narrow way, and transmutes it, thus increasing its power by many fold and perpetuating the body indefinitely or until the ego desires to dissolve it by rates of motion set in action by its inherent will. You know what I mean? It says, if allegories of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as well as Paul's epistles and the Acts of Apostles teach anything, they teach the mastery and transmutation of the human body by anyone who obeys the physiological guidebook, the whole book, the Holy Bible. It says, but let the reader observe that each of the 66 books, as well as an almost countless number of ancient books of all races and languages, teach the same mathematical physiological facts. Man has turned the mighty power he possesses to every object and principle of force in the universe except himself, the greatest miracle of all. When man focuses his divine thinking lens upon himself, he will realize that he is an epitome of unlimited cosmic energy. Then the heavens will roll together as a scroll and reveal the real man as the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of the world. It's talking about yourself. You see? So it goes on. And this is a powerful demonstration dealing with the eternity of perfection. That's one level on the physiology. It's going to get back into that. This is even deeper here. Let me see if anybody's there that may be trying to get in on the link. Okay, all right, no. So I'm going to drop the link again just in case somebody didn't see it. And you want to come in here. Like I say, this is a powerful demonstration here. And anybody, welcome. No problem. Let me do this here. So now that you know who Joseph and Mary is, now you got some background on it. Now you understand when we say God, man, the word made flesh, you know what this demonstration really going into. But they don't teach these things to the public, because if they teach them to the public, there'll be an outcry. A pseudo, that ain't real, that ain't this, and that ain't that. And people that's sensitive about the book, gonna get in their feelings and everything. But this is basically secret doctrine that's hidden, behind these particular measures that they demonstrate. you know, and we just giving it to you for what it is. What you do with it after you get it, that's on you. So let's go into this. This is one of my favorite pieces in this particular work. You know, the eternity of perfection. Listen to this. This is powerful, family. Y'all gonna like this. It says a child brought to his mother a piece of ice and asked, "What is this?" The mother answered, "It's ice." Again, the child asked, "Well, what is there in ice?" And the mother answered, "There's water in the ice." The child desired to find the water in the ice and procured a hammer and pounded the piece of ice into little bits, and the warm air soon changed all the ice into water. The child was grievously disappointed, for the ice that the child supposed contained water had disappeared. And the child said, "Where's the ice that contained this water?" And so it came to pass that the mother was compelled by the child's persistent question to say, "Ice is all water. There is no such thing as ice. That which we call ice is crystallized or frozen water." The child understood. A student brought to his teacher some water and asked, "What is water? What does it contain?" The teacher answered, "Water contains oxygen and hydrogen," and then explained how the two gases might be separated and set free by heat. The student boiled the water until all of the molecules of oxygen and hydrogen had been set free, but he was surprised to find that all of the water had disappeared. Then the student asked of the teacher, "Where's the water that held the gases that have escaped?" Then was the teacher compelled by the student's persistent questions to answer, "Water itself is the product of oxygen and hydrogen. Water does not contain anything other than these gases. In reality, there is no such substances or fluid as water. That which we name water is a rate of motion set in operation by the union of two parts of hydrogen with one part of oxygen. And of course, the phenomenon disappears when the union of the gases is broken." The student understood. A devout scientist presented himself before God and said, "Lord, what are these gases men call oxygen and hydrogen?" The good Lord answered and said, "They are molecules in the blood and body of the universe." Then spake the science, "Lord, wilt thou tell me of the kind of molecules that compose thy blood and body?" And the Lord replied, "These same molecules, gases, or principles compose my blood and body, for I and the universe are one and the same." Once again, the scientist said, "My Lord, may I ask then, what is spirit and what is matter?" And thus answered the Lord, "As ice and water are one, and the gases and waters are one, so is spirit and matter one. The different phases and manifestations cognized by man in the molecules of my body, that is the universe, are caused by the word. Thus they are my thoughts clothed with form." Now the scientist felt bold, being redeemed from fear, and asked, "Is my blood then identical with thy blood in composition and divine essence?" And the Lord said, "Yeah, thou art one with the Father." The scientist now understood and said, "Now my eyes are open, and I perceive that when I eat, I partake of thy body. When I drink of thy blood. And when I breathe thy spirit." So-called matter is pure intelligence and nothing else, because there is not anything else. Pure intelligence cannot progress or become better. There is nothing but intelligence. Omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience must mean intelligence. Therefore, these terms are all included in the word. Let us adopt a short word that will express all that the above written words are intended to express, namely the word it. I stand for all, the eternal I, and T stands for operation, manifestation, vibration, action, or motion. The I in motion is T in crossification. It is the T It says cross. It says we say it rains. It is cold. It is all right. What do we mean by it? Who knows? Some say the weather, others natural phenomena. Well, very well. Then what do we mean by the weather or natural phenomena? Why, just it, of course. It does not progress. It does not need to. It forever manifests, operates, and differentiates and presents different aspects of viewpoints of itself. But these different phases are neither good, better, or nor best, neither bad nor worse, simply different shades and colorings of the one and only intelligence. Every so-called thing, whether it be animal, vegetable, mineral, a molecule, or atom, ion, electron, is the result of the one intelligence expressing itself in different rates of motion. Then what is spirit? Spirit means breath or life. Spirit, that which is breathed into man, must be intelligence. A man would not be intelligent. Non-intelligent substance, which is of course unthinkable, would not breathe into anything, nor make it intelligent if it did. Therefore, we see that spirit, intelligence, and matter are all one and the same essence in different rates of motion. So-called molecules, atoms, electrons know what to do. They know where and how to cohere, unite, and operate to form a leaf or a flower. They know how to separate and disintegrate the same leaf or flower. These particles of omnipresent life build planets, suns, and systems. They hurled a comet on its way across the measureless deserts of stardust and embossed its burning path. From the materialistic and individual concept of life and its operations, it is pitiable and pathetic to view the wrecks along the shores of science. It is only when we view these apparently sad failures from the firm foothold of the unity of being and the operation of wisdom that we clearly see in these frictions and warning elements and temporary defeats and victories, the chemical operation of eternal spirit operating within its own substance, right? Its very self. It is only through the fires of transmutation that we are enabled to see that all life is one eternal life and therefore cannot be taken, injured, or destroyed. You know how they say, matter can neither be created or destroyed. So it says the fitful varying, changing beliefs are what they call the energy, right? It says fitful varying, changing beliefs of men in the transition stage from the sleep and dreams of materialism to the realization of oneness of spirit show forth in a babble of words and theories a few, which I shall briefly consider, beginning with the yet popular belief in evolution. The evolutionary concept has its starting point in the idea, that matter, so-called, is something separate from mind, intelligence, or spirit, that this matter had a beginning, C, that it contains within itself the desire to progress or improve, and finally, that the race is progressing, becoming wiser, better, etc. Against this assumption, I submit the proposition that the universe, one verse, always existed without beginning or ending, and is and always has been absolutely perfect in all its varied manifestations and operations. A machine is no stronger than its weakest part. If the self-existing universe is weak or imperfect in any part, it must of a necessity always have been so. Having all the knowledge there is, being all, right? It is unthinkable that there is any imperfection anywhere. Everything we see, feel, taste, or any matter sense is perfect substance, condensed or manifested from perfect elements. But all differ in their notes, vibrations, or modes, rates of motion. A serpent is as perfect, therefore as good as a man. Without feet, it outruns a man. Without hands, It outclimbs the ape and has been a symbol of wisdom throughout all the ages. Man is an evil thing to the serpent's consciousness. Neither are evil nor good. It says they are different expressions or variations of the play of the infinite will. The brain of the jellyfish is composed of the same elements of the same substance as the brain of man, merely of different combination. Can man tell what the jellyfish is thinking, or why it moves and manifests its energy thus or so? How then is man wiser than the jellyfish? Because his thoughts are of different nature and operate to different ends? Right? This is some powerful information here, because going through this, what we're looking at is they talking about intelligent design. You know what I mean? And what we call spirit is really intelligence. And the Quran actually speaks on this. You know, it say Allah was the one that created man and taught him with the pen, taught him speech and intelligence. You see what I'm saying? So this, like when it said he breathed the breath of life into man, he became a living soul. You know, this is intelligence. We even know that by teaching people. If we begin to teach somebody, or we had a master teacher, you know, in the Moorish paradigm, we say that one breathed, you know, the breath of life into me. You know, that one breathed, and we're talking about the truth that they gave us. You know, it quickened the spirit within us to become conscious of our reality. You see what I'm saying? So this is the real meaning, you know, behind intelligence. If we comprehend intelligent design and comprehend that this same intelligence is perfect because it never stops. How we know that this is intelligence in the design in us that's moving in creation? Because every season, leaves come from trees. You see, when it's time to produce leaves. Every season, leaves fall. You see, there's a death process and a resurrection process. So we can see resurrection and rebirth, you know, in the cycles, for example. This is a perfect system. It takes this system in order for us to basically be able to thrive and live, because when these seasons come around, they bring us more, you know, to sustain us. The fruits, the vegetables, you know, and everything. If the season were to stop, we'll be in trouble without no vegetables or no fruits, because that's what the body needs to sustain itself on the dietary level. So if you can't see that that is perfect in and of itself, all of these things coming from different combinations of the atom, you know, expressing itself, you know, or speaking to us basically in the language of the God that created it. You know, once we comprehend that, we comprehend what the Neteru was demonstrated in ancient Kemet. You feel me? So it says wisdom, all there is a simple operates and manifests, expresses forms or creates them of self-existent substance. As wisdom is without beginning or end, so are all its operations or manifestations without beginning or end. Modern man is now taking his first lessons in condensing or materializing air. While through unnumbered ages, the spider has performed a miracle without necessity of first attending a school of chemistry. The modus operandi in perfect webs. Perfect, every spider you ever known or seen, they spin perfect webs. The modus operandi, it says, by which the spider forms his web from air is the despair of science. The wisdom of the ant or the beaver strikes dumb all the believers in the Darwinian dream. The perfect cooperative commonwealth of bees is still unattained, the unattained idea of man. Most of these things that we consider just specimens, you know, they have the ability to act more in line with unity than these people that think and supposed to be higher than these particular beings. And we can see even now the animals are becoming more expressive, so much so they acting like they got more sense than a human being now. But we supposed to be the one that actually governing everything. And you can never really see us come together, you know, like an ant colony or like bees do. So who is more intelligent? You know, who really moving according to the cause? You know, the ant don't have the same thing we have. You know, they move according to the will of divinity, so to speak. You see, all they know is to do what they do. But kind of remind you of an angel too, right? But it says, beneath the soil upon which falls the shadow of the throne of Menelik, it says the Abyssinian king are layers and strata of buried civilization, and astronomers in China mapped the heavens, named the stars, calculated the eclipses, and return of the comet ages before Moses led the Hebrew out of bondage, or the walls of Baalbek cast the shade for the Arab and his camel. The evidences and witnesses of the wisdom of men on the earth of thousands of years ago confront the scientific investigator at every turn. Here the Rosetta Stone, and there the inscribed cylinder of Arioch, or statue of Judea, king of Chaldea, prophecies inscribed on cuneiform tablets of clay foretelling the building of the pyramids are brought to light by the excavator in the history of the Chinese empire, running back in links of unbroken chain of 150,000 years, forever refute the theory of the descent of man. Boy, they whooping up on Darwinism, ain't it? Side by side with the Asiatic, it says, who knew all that we know today. The whelp, the crystal, the cell, the jellyfish, saurian, the ape, and the caveman, side by side with the masons who could build arches of stone in ancient Yucatan, right? That mocked at the ravages of time, lived and wrought the ant operating in its cooperative commonwealth, which man can still only dream. Side by side with the caveman and cannibals dwells the spider, whose operation in aerial elements is the despair of chemical investigators. And when Solomon's gold-inspired temple illuminated the holy city, or the Tower of Babel grew toward the clouds, and the mound builders recorded their history in a rock and soil, the eagle and the dove calmly floated in the air and wondered when man would evolve to their plane of science. They are wondering still. Oh man, that's powerful. It says exponents of the evolutionary theory never tie, in quoting Professor Huxley. One who has not read the writings of this eminent scientist, he letting you know that he a real scientist, will be led to believe by the statements of his followers that he had positive views on the great question of force and matter. Following is an extract from a letter written by Professor Huxley to Charles Kingsley under the date of May 22nd, 1863, taken from the published letters of Huxley by his son, Leonard. I don't know whether matter is anything distinct from force. I don't know that atoms are anything but pure myths. Cognito ergo sum. Gerson. It says, it's to my mind a ridiculous piece of bad logic. All I can say at any time being cogito par himself, the Latin form of I hold to be preferable to the English I think, because the latter asserts the existence of an ego about which the bundle of phenomena at present addressing you knows nothing. I believe Hamilton and Mansell and Herbert and Spencer, so long as they are destructive, it says, and laugh at their beards as soon as they try to spin their own cobweb. Is this basis of ignorance broad enough for you? If you, theologian, can find as firm footing as I, man of science, do on this foundation of minus naught, there will be naught to fear for our ever diverging. For you see, I am quite as ready to admit your doctrine that souls secrete bodies, as I am the opposite one that bodies secret souls. Simply, my body secretes souls, pardon self, simply because I deny the possibility of obtaining any evidence as to the truth or falsehood of either hypothesis. My fundamental axiom of speculative philosophy is that materialism and spiritualism are opposite poles of the same absurdity. The absurdity of imagining that we knew anything about either spirit or matter. Huxley admitted that he did not know. As the appetite craves new chemical combinations of food from day to day, so does the mind crave new concepts of the infinite life. The word infinite defines an endless differentiation of concept. If the spirit consciousness, the mighty angel, that of clairvoyant seer, John the Revelator, saw descending out of the heavens, shall carry away the pillars of material evolution, a temple of truth divinely fair, will spring phoenix light to take its place. Eyes shall then be opened, ears unstopped. Man will then realize that the so-called lower forms of life are just as complex, wonderful, and difficult to form as the organism of man. That protoplasm is as wonderful in any other form as in gray matter of the human brain, which is only another form of expression, or its expression. That the molecular composition, it says, of the jellyfish puzzles the greatest chemists, and the wisdom of a Bieber is enough to strike dumb all the believers in the Darwinian fairy tale. And has the dream of good and evil any better foundation than has this one of material evolution? We are here to solve the problems of life and not evade them, and to name the mighty operations of eternal wisdom, good and evil, is simply evade instead of solve. The universal principle of spirit or God is impartial. Saint and the sinner are one in the eternal mind. God or infinite life is not the least injured by so-called good or evil. The spiritual ego is the interested party and must work out its own salvation. There is no point in the universe better or higher or nearer God or the center than any other point. All places are necessary, and no one is favored over any other. As Huxley well said, good and evil are opposite poles of the same absurdity. Good must have evil for its opposite, if it exists at all. He who would realize being must get rid of the concept of good as well as the concept of evil. Good and evil are qualifications, and being does not admit of qualification or grades. It simply is. The idea we call good eternally exists, but its name is wisdom operations. Nothing is low or high, good or bad, except that individual concept which allows comparison. Comparisons are odious. So when you get into dealing with divinity, you go beyond the duality, is what it's saying. You see oneness instead of duality. So physical science, or so-called, declares in its textbooks that light travels from the sun to the earth in 8 minutes, a distance of about 95 million miles, right? To question this statement a few years ago meant ostracism from the circle of the elect who knew things. But today, iconoclast stands at the gate of the temples of learning and batters at the walls with the hammer of Thor. Fear and trembling seize upon the votaries of material gods as they see evolution, progression, the theories of electricity, light, heat, good and evil, all cast into the crucible of truth for transmutation in the divine alchemy of being, all dissolve in its pieces of ice of different sizes and shapes changed to water. The present day alchemist, as he begins to tread the soil, the ancient alchemist tells us that that light and heat are simply rates of motion of substance that does not travel from star to star, from sun to planet, but vibrates in its place at rates directed by the eternal word. This substance, area or etheric, does not travel. It is everywhere present, the body of the omnipresent being. Men now dare assert that there is no evidence that the sun is hot, but there's evidence that the sun is the dynamo of the solar system, and so vibrates the etheric substance that light, heat, cold, gravitation are produced not as entities separate from the universal elements, but as results or effects produced by different rates of motion of molecules of the wire and molecular motion, or of the air or etheric substance, as in wireless telegraphy. It says another ancient belief now obsolete is the progression of man in a better state of existence after death, cessation of bodily functions. This idea had its origin in the fallacy that there were grades of goodness in the divine mind, and that somehow we are not treated right during the earth life, and that in consequence we must be rewarded by an easy birth over there. But we now see quite clearly that the great cause of life and all its operations would be unjust to withhold from its sons and daughters for one moment anything that belonged to them. If the cause ever does wrong, we see no reason why it should repent or do right. If the cause ever failed in the least particular to give just dues, it may do so again. It says at any time, the better state of existence mentioned above can only come through wisdom obtained here and now. Thus will man work out his own salvation. Time was, and not so very long ago, when recognized the recognized scientists believed that there were about 74 elements indivisible, separate and distinct, but the alchemical iconoclast, with his hammer of truth, has pulverized the fallacy and remorselessly hammered and pounded the 74 phases into one countenance. For a long time, hydrogen gas, the negative pole of water, was supposed to be indivisible beyond all question, but the present day chemist knows it is only an expression of yet more subtle molecules, back of which standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. As post-mortem examination of some of the wrecks along the shores of the troubled sea of science discloses a belief that the ego is an individual who, through knowledge of its divine origin, may draw on to itself all things it may desire. But as fast as the sleepers awaken, they see that each ego is only a part of the stupendous whole. That does not draw onto itself anything. That there is no law of attraction, for the eternal substance is everywhere present, and each one uses exactly that portion prepared for him from everlasting unto everlasting. When the continuity of life was first demonstrated beyond question, those who caught the first dispatches from the disincarnate spirit sprang forth from their beds of material sleep, and with half open eyes only saw the great truth through a glass darkly. Then came a babble of words. They jabbered a jargon that needed translation to be understood. The ideas of progression in the earth life that obtained among men was transplanted to the spirit realm, and were told by votaries of spiritual philosophy that men and women had great opportunities for progression after leaving the flesh. As the idea of commencement of the universe was common belief among those asleep in material consciousness, being the cornerstone of evolution, so the idea obtained that the individual had commencement in the material human laboratory. As these half-awakened individuals could not comprehend that an action contrary to their concept of good could possibly be caused by infinite intelligence, they concluded that the so-called bad actions of men and women were prompted by evil earth-bound spirits. These people, many of them, also thought that the main object of the existence of the spirits in the spirit realm was altogether information about mines and stocks and bonds and lotteries and races, and thus assist poor mortals to get rich quick. It was supposed that these spirits were posted in regard to deeds and wills, and knew when wealthy relatives would shuffle off the mortal coil. It says when undesirable wives or husbands would pass out. But at last the sum of truth pierced the darkness, and the jargon of selflessness changed to the new song. It says, we now clearly see that each spirit is a part or an attribute of one eternal spirit, therefore has existed always, and that the process of generation deals with flesh, clothing, or mass for the spirit in which it performs necessary part of creative process. It says the word person is derived from the Greek word persona, meaning mass. So basically, your person or your persona is basically a mask for the true spirit that you are. That's why in the teaching of the Circle 7, in the creation and fall of man, it say, creative fate gave the spirit man a soul that he may function upon the plane of soul, and gave him a body of flesh that he may function upon the plane of things made manifest. It also speaks on the unity of Allah and man, and it says that man is spirit clothed with soul made in the form of Allah. So this is saying that man is just a vessel. This body is a persona. It's just a mask that's covering the true you. You see? But anyway, it says, we see that phenomenon we have called obsession by evil spirits is God's surgery or dynamic operation in his own temple, quite as impossible for us to understand in our present environment as it is for the child to understand the wisdom and necessity and the operation of an adept surgeon. And finally, we now see and realize fully that eternal wisdom without beginning or end of days does not progress before entering a temple of flesh, while it occupies it, or after it leaves it. All creative or formative processes may properly be termed operations of wisdom or eternal life. In the unwalled temple of now, beneath its roofless dome, there is no progression but a constantly moving panorama, forever presenting to consciousness new phases of the absolute. The men and women who do things take hold of opportunities and material that they find all about them now and operate with them, astonishing results following the efforts of all who recognize that eternal force has use for them now to carry out the divine plan. We are all operators or workmen in the divine workshop, and the divine intelligence, the eternal it, made no mistake in placing any of us here, but does insist that we recognize that now is the time and here's the place to do our best. It says, as the great cause does not need to first practice on the lower forms in order at some future time to obtain perfection, we must recognize and practice being in the present instead of becoming in the future. For the eternal now is all the time there is. But you say your science is taken away my God, and I know not where you have laid him. On the contrary, I have brought you to the one true God, which was and is and evermore shall be. The 5th verse of the last chapter of the book of Job reads as follows: I have heard thee by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye seeth thee. The wonderful writings of scientific statements found in that book of all books, the Christian Bible, were recorded at dates covering thousands of years by men and women who never heard of each other. Some of these teachers lived way back in the age when the solar system was swinging through the zodiacal sign Taurus, when the phallic worship prevailed, when the number 6 was understood as sex, and the creative or formative principle operating through the sex functions was worshipped as the very holy of holies. Talking about that phallus and that yoni worship. It says other teachers who contributed to the knowledge of life and its operation contained in the Bible lived in the age of Aries, a fire sign, when the fire and the sun were worshipped as the essence of God. And as heat, the cause of phenomenon called fire, cannot be seen, it was reasonable thing to say that no one can see God and live. So then it depends upon the point of view one has of God or the spirit of things, whether he says no one can see God and live, or says, now mine eyes seeth thee. The writer of the book named Job must have lived more than 8,000 years ago, even before the Taurian age, symbolized by the winged bulls. of Nineveh. It says, which was the Gemini age and the age of perception. It says an expression being an air age. Let it be understood that an age in this connection means 2,200 years, the period of the solar system to pass across one of the signs of the zodiac. In their age, egos awaken to their divine heritage and realize their godhood. The writer of Job, then living in the Gemini or air age, could see God and live. Our solar system has entered the sign of Aquarius, another air sign, and the spiritualized elements so act upon our brain cells that we are able to understand the teachings of a past age and also see God and live. Carlieli, the prince of literary critics, said, the book of Job is the most wonderful and beautiful literary production, it says, ever given to the world. Certainly, the scientific truths of astronomy and alchemy and of the spirits operating in the flesh as set forth in that book are without a parallel. The letters J-O-B have an occult significance, a scientific meaning, pardon self. I and J are the same. I-O meaning the same as Job. I means eternal I. All the Hebrew letters were formed from I, or O means the universe, without beginning or end. B means Beth, a body, house, church, temple, and therefore God, or all may be discovered as seen in Job or Io. The word Job has no reference to a person. The name or letters of the word symbolize principle, the same as wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, Christ, or Buddha. We symbolize the principles of our government in personalities and picture them in the form of a man or woman, namely Uncle Sam or Columbia. But we do more than that. We put words in their mouth and make them utter speech. And shall we ignore these facts when dealing with the record of past ages? One record plainly states Jesus spake only in parables. But let us consider more closely the discovery of God, the numerical value of G, O, and D. According to the ancient Kabbalah, is 9, the all of mathematics. No person is alluded to. If the statement I and the Father are one is true, the I must be the Father manifested or expressed. As it is not possible to conceive the Father except through expression, we must conclude that manifestation in some form of so-called matter is eternal, the great necessity, as therefore has always been. It is quite reasonable to think that some oxygen and hydrogen eternally existed in gaseous form, some in combination that causes water and some in concrete concentrated form known as ice. Then upon the postulate that spirit and matter, that is bodily or material expression, are one, it follows logically that matter, including the physical body or temple of man, is necessary to the father-mother principle, while held in a given rate of activity or expression, as this life essence is necessary to matter, or the physical structure of man. I see oxygen and hydrogen when I look at the manifestation we call ice. When I see water, I know just how oxygen and hydrogen will appear when united. So when I look at any form of so-called matter, I know exactly how God appears at that particular time and place. I do not see the effect or the works of God, but I see God. And just as much as of God, face to face, as I am capable of seeing and recognizing at a certain time. Step by step, the scientific investigator is being led to the threshold of the awful absolute truth that all matter or substance or energy or force, call it what you may, is not only intelligent, but is pure intelligence itself. Atoms, molecules, electrons are but expressions of rates of motion, of pure mind, thought, or intelligence that man is personified and called God. Ice is not permeated with water or controlled by water. Ice is water. Matter is not controlled by mind. Mind and matter are one. A high vibration of mind does not control. Well, high vibration of mind does control does control to a certain extent a lower vibration of mind, as water may carry a lump of ice here or there, water being a more positive rate of activity of the same thing. The particles, so called of matter, know what to do. The atoms that compose a leaf know when to cohere and materialize a leaf, and they know how and when to disintegrate and dematerialize it, right? It says, thou shalt have no other gods. Then it says, I hold in my mind that particular form of the one thing called a rose. Material thought says it's made by God, or that God is in the rose or back of it, or that God caused or created it. But when spirit, the I am, asks, where is the God that created the rose? Where has he betaken himself? Material belief is silent. But hold a moment. I have here a bud, a half-formed rose. If God makes a rose, he must continue to work to completion. Ah, speak softly, look closely. The rose is now being made, and you say God is making. Yes, you said God made this full-blown rose. Well, then he is surely now at work on this half-blown rose. Bring on your spectroscope, your microscope. Quick now, you chemists, bring on your test tubes, your acids, your alkalis. It says magnify. Now we shall discover God. Actually say your spectroscope and x-ray and then analyze, illuminate, and magnify. Now we shall discover God. He is here at work before our eyes. What do you see, chemist? What do you see, scientist? Ah, I know what you see. My experience in the realm of matter of spirit tell me what you see. O thou stupendous sex force, sex days of creation, thy father, mother Yahweh, thou divine male and female, thy eternal positive and negative dynamics, we now behold thee operating out from the chemicalizing mass of God, or mass of God's creative compounds. Out of the quivering, vibrating substance slowly comes forth the rose. But are you sure it is a rose? Hold on a moment. What is a rose? Of what material is formed? Ah, the chemist speaks. He of the crucible, test tubes, and acids. Hear the chemist. He says the rose is made up from universal substance, or the rose is universal substance in a certain rate of activity. Thanks. Blessed be the chemist. Universal, one verse, one substance. No other substance. God is the rose, or the smile we call a rose. God is again manifesting the great eternal it, for which there is no other name. Job did not say, I see the thoughts of God, nor did he say, I can fathom the mind of God. The plan cannot be seen, but that which is planned, a planet, can be seen. One may see the substance of God without understanding the mind of God. Let us hear Emerson on this stupendous, glorious theme. The great idea baffles wit. Language falters under it. It leaves the learned in the lurch. Not art, nor power, nor toil can find the measure of the eternal mind, nor hymn, nor prayer, nor church. Our ever-present divine mind and substance, we now fully realize our oneness with thee, and bathe and revel or reveal thy glory. The mighty angel of reality has torn the veil of illusion, and we see a celestial city of truth with wide open gates, and the white light of eternal love forever upon its streets. O thou in the shadow of sickness and trial, take up thy bed and walk. Thy sins be forgiven of thee. And I'm going to stop right there, because that's a lot of reading I just did. And we'll start back on the next time we come in here. But this is just going into, showing in, I'm going through the book, God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. This is my little late night library, archives of wisdom, measure that I'm trying to start right now so that I can give our family some divine insight, so to speak. So, yeah, this is a powerful measure, family. This is very powerful, so peace and love to everybody that came through and held fast as I brought this forth, because I'm going to bring some more of this information forth. I'm going to keep bringing it, to give our family more clarity, and as you can see, this is coming forth from the Egyptian Adeptus Research Society, and we dealing with all knowledge, all wisdom, all understanding. I got a lot in my archives over here, from, a lot of classical material. We just want to get into some of the mysticism and esotericism that's being hid from our people, because some of our people don't know that I know this stuff. You see what I'm saying? But we got to give our people a firm foundation, in the truth, before they can really bear witness to this type of information. This ain't the type of information you play around with. It's dealing strictly with self-mastery and being able to go within the self, as I said, and heal yourself. So if you want to know the use of this, it's for the healing of the self, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I love those statements, though, that, when we refer to everything in creation and we begin to observe it around it. That's why I was telling them brothers, a lot of brothers that deal with Medu Neter, I express it to them and I tell them, like, brother, reading the book of creation is how you read Medu Neter. The actual language of the Egyptian is the hieratic, what we call Medu Ray and Kemet. That's the proper way of saying it. Then came the second Inshet, and then came the Hikapta. But those symbols, as our ancestors taught them, there's a lot of science in them. And in fact, we can say science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, are in those pictorial symbols. So if you were to just read the book of creation, study the nature of creation, you would have a better perception of how our ancestors demonstrated Medu Neter, which means the language of God. The language of God is where you are able to listen to that divinity and observe intelligent design. And you can bring forth. Now, a lot of people don't know that the word science, originated from religious teaching. Originally, science was known in the Hebrew word olam, or the Arabic ilm, which deals with knowledge. But that knowledge was alchemical knowledge, the knowledge of everything behind creation. So you'll see me a lot of times dealing with metaphysical interpretations and then bringing forth like gematria with the math. And then I will show you scientific, beholding, so to speak. I'm going to show you something real quick right now, just a prime example of what I'm talking about. When we deal with this stuff and being able to see that God is speaking to us through creation. You just have to be silent, keen enough to hear the voice of silence that speak within in your silence, is what I'm saying. So let me open this up before I get ready to close this demonstration out. But I want to share this with you. This thing go deep, family. That's how I dig with it, So I be telling people I have my own methodology of going into these ancient texts of Kemet. And I get into the mathematics and the gematria, as it relates to the words of being brought up. I just posted one recently. I got a lot of them up through here. I'm going to show you some prime examples of what I'm talking about. Those of you who are on my page have seen a few things already on Facebook. But I give you a prime example right here, for example. I'm looking at formulas that are being brought out of these special measures. Like, for example, this is hieratograms. This is the hieratic writing here, which is the true written form. This is the metaphysical. So me breaking down the metaphysical right here, I see it as a formula. I don't see it like E. Wallace Budge and all them other cats see it, So in this formula, what I found out, the root of this word, which is actually, is sewe ahe, right? this ain't really translated normally. This is a determinative, is what they like to call it, right? This Sewe Ahe I didn't get from these symbols. The Sewe Ahe I got from here. And I applied the sounds from the hieratic to these particular measures. And then I use these measures to find the formula, because I have the Egyptian alphabetical creation cycle book written by the brother Mustafa Gadala, and he assigns the gematria to the letters. So I did my own science here, and I say, okay, well, what is dealing with, the math in these things. And so once I found the gematria of what these particular drawings are, they led me back to here, which is that actually number 1 represents the letter A, and the number 5 represents the letter W. And then when you add those together, you get 6, and that's actually W. This is dealing with, the Kemetic chart in the alphabet, not the English words. These are Kemetic. And so in this particular drawing, we find out that, for example, the letter R, when you have, we say R, we say, and that's one sound in all actuality. I found that this deals with the alpha, the original, or the one and all, right? And this also represents the divine infusion. But if you look into these signs, you can see an infusion here. That's what this twisted rope represents. I always like to compare it to the DNA helix, because everything around us is on a divine grid. Everything around us is moving in a heliaxial-like fashion. How can I prove this? All you got to do is watch the wind blow. And when it blow trash or paper that may be on the ground, it's spinning in a circle. That's because there's an unseen grid that's moving in a heliaxial form that ascends all the way upward into the cosmos. These are the same things, on a greater scale that cause, tornadoes and so forth and so on, from the forces, of nature, so to speak. But it's a heliaxial grid around us moving up, an energy grid. And this is the same thing when it comes to our cell. Everything moves in a circular pattern, in ascension, so to speak, right? So this is the divine infusion of the one and all. And I can see this by looking at the sign. See, that's the actual full infusion right there. And if you go into this sign right here, this is the symbol of God, the symbol of the deity in ancient Kemet. You see? So when we say divine infusion of the one and all, this is a divine infusion coming from the creator. This rope that's tied in a knot, to me, represents, what we would call the cord of love, the golden cord of divinity. You see? And then when we go into this particular measure, they like to call this, a folded cloth and so forth and so on, but in all actuality, in essence, spirit itself doesn't fold. You see? Everything else has to bend to the will of the one and all in divine infusion. Creation itself bends to the will of the creator. You see? And I call this an anaglyphic formula, because these are anaglyphs, not hieroglyphs to me. So anyway, that off right here is actually the alpha, the one and all, the divine infusion. It says in connectivity between the upper and lower realms. As it is above, so is below. Now, where did I get also these numbers from? I added up 9 plus 6. What is that? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You see that right there? So basically this word all I got from the math between the atomic mass in this, particular element, which is right here, beryllium, right? And this is lithium. Now we know, what beryllium is and lithium is if we know about the elements. These are energy sources. They actually supposed to be somewhat we can say in opposition to a degree, but they're really not, because what happens when you bring these two together, it brings forth, let me bring this off of right here. It brings forth what you call an electrical conductivity with exactly zero resistance. And rather than looking at this just on the scientific level, I can see that with us on the spiritual level. We have to get to a level where we have a divine electrical conductivity. You know, we're able to link ourselves up with divinity with exactly zero existence from this physical body. See, that's what I'm getting out of this right here when I go into the breakdown of these anaglyphs, you know, and once I see that, again, that alpha, that one and all, divine infusion and connectivity between the up and lower realms. But then it also corresponds with the actual, you know, hieratic word and definition here. You know, swear is the way that they defined it. All this is coming from me. And it means to make, endure, to last, to stay in house, lengthen life, last long. So that goes right back to the definition here, because it deals with superconductivity, electrical conductivity with exactly zero existence. So if you don't have something there to block or obstruct your energy, you can stay in that energy being unhindered and come into the fullness of your divinity. You can endure in it. You can last in it. We have a term in the Moorish science where we say is not the master more honorable than his wall, and we actually referring to the spirit being more, you know, authoritative than this flesh that we have, because it's not in flesh and bones of thinking reason per se, outside of being directed by, you know, the spirit in us that's driving us, that animated force. You feel me? Notice it says this is causative, this statement here. So what I did is I took, you know, from my Moorish Holy Quran, every word that corresponded with the definition to endure, to last. So I took the word infinite from that. The everlasting of the past end into the never ending days to come, everlasting life, everlasting retribution, everlasting gospel, a seed of everlasting life, boundless power, boundless space, vast estate, a long, long time, tarry long, alone. So these are definitions by which I define swat. You see, mentioned, which would actually mean swat means to endure, as we see, or be everlasting, right? But when we say mentioned, you know, this is a scroll here. So this is an everlasting a message, a scroll. We have in our DNA and RNA specifically, messages, you know, that are eternal from God, even at the DNA level. Our DNA, you know, is where we are able to tap into the voice of God, thus tap into what we call the language of God. Meru Netta, read yourself. You are the book. You are the true papyri. You feel me? This, see, I can go here, but I can't teach on this type of stuff right here when one has been made prejudice, you know, against, you know, what it is I'm gonna bring forth, because they already got hated. They're gonna close their ears to what I'm talking about. You know, so you know, I got a lot to bring forth, family. I'm aware that I'm like the well of Zimzim. You know, I never run dry. So you ain't gonna never see me just being redundant unless somebody coming at me and they ask me the same question over and over again. I got a lot more to bring to my family, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Give you some of these gifts of the understanding, you know, because this transcend belief, you know, this can all be utilized for the self. And I'm gonna keep studying, you know, these things like this. This is my methodology. It makes sense to me. You know, I can see the union. I even see 7 right here. And I didn't even do the gematria here. But like I said, you got 15 here, and that gave me pretty much the letter A, you know, the letter H, and then the W, you know, which is an actual word. Actually, the root that's found in this word, you know, and it's mainly dealing with the alpha, again, the one and all, and the divine infusion connectivity between the lower and upper realms, meaning that God, the all, exists within you, divinely infused in your being. You know, when you go into the DNA, you know, the God code tell you that God exists eternal within the body, and there's some connectivity between the macrocosm and yourself, who is the microcosm. here in this lower realm or this earthbound plane of existence. Once you have this knowledge and you are able to come into a clear conception of this knowledge, then you can say you know yourself. Once you know yourself, then you can get on a level and actually realize that these measures are really, we can say, portions of incantation. And by being able to, speak, demonstrate Heka, you will see how through vibration, you will be able to heal yourself, so to speak. So rather than looking at this as like a word, I see a recitation here. I see a mantra here that can be chanted. So it's powerful, family. It's just in us to be what's in us. It's in our nature to be God, family. We one with it. You feel me? We one with him. So this is powerful. This is powerful. We don't even play when it comes to this information. Once we're able to see it from that aspect right there, all is well. So I'm going to close with a little reading from the Book of Fire, a small reading, a little paragraph. The Exhuming of a Nation, written by my chairman. I keep telling our family they got to get the book. You got to get your copy of this book, family. It's one of the best books ever written, when it comes to dealing with enlightening our people, so to speak. Let me see where I got it. I just had it open, so it still should be here. I want to close out with this drawing. Then I'm going to get me a little shed eye. Let me see. I had a copy of it pulled up. Oh, you know what? I can do it like this here. It may come up. Let's see. There you go, right there. Okay, it's in our nature to be one with the supreme reality, family. You can believe that it's our nature to be God. That's what we teach. We don't teach no spookism. All of this is adept information. Like I say, certain people want to hide this stuff from you, but we give it to you. We don't keep no secret. We ain't got to keep no secret. If your mind ain't able to receive it, it ain't going to receive it. So you don't have to hide secret. No information. We keep it sacred. That's what a Hierophant does. He revealed the light. Look up the word Hierophant. The duty of a Hierophant is to be a revealer of the light. That's what Prophet Noble Drew Ali was. That's why he said, I came to take the cover of all secret organizations. Yes, sir. Give me 1 second here. I want to pull this thing here up. That's the only thing I hate about this the PDF here. It moves fairly slow. Come on. It's 700 pages too, family. I know y'all can see it up, 777. And we go into everything in here. That's why it's called the third heaven adept position. Third eye, the heart of man, all that good stuff. Okay, this is where I want to be right here. Ancient Kemetic Moorish history. Okay, now that one right there. Conscious of biblical beginnings. Not that portion there, not that portion there. Back to the Greeks. Oh, here it is. Yeah, that's it. A value of a divine history and going into the making of the first God, Ish and Issue. It says the value of a divine history. Hardly any so-called Negroes, colored folk, or black people It says, read Ish and Issa. It says, Isha into what, when they were gods. It says in the garden. Today they cannot fathom their ancient foreparents as being these gods that walked the earth. Even fewer know they were sun-kissed with melanin, embodied with flesh from the holy rich grounds of Africa. Less have siphoned the reason why the holy lands are in Africa is because it gave birth to the holy people. Tragically, even smaller amounts accept the value of knowing Adam and Eve are their mother and fathers of the human family of Asiatics and Muslims. See Appendix question 57. But then and again, some have been miseducated via a primate evolution. Truth is, because they are not free, a free nation of people, today's NBC, Negro, Black, and Color, is by far more trained than educated. This formula is verified by the fact only property can be trained, while education belongs to the citizens of a free national government, right? Hence, Negro and Blacks being property names that identify those persons detached from the human family and not having a father or mother can only be trained at best. Since the NBC does not have a divine history, they can be trained like domesticated beasts to be professors, judges, generals, and congressmen, etc., for any master's government and social benefit. In the end, no property can accrue national prestige, wealth, independence, or prosperity. The making of the first god, Ish, and Issa. Ish or Isha was the first angelic god to be formed in the higher tone of flesh. This is why we Moorish are taught the garden is both a geographical and a conscious status. The geographical garden, soon to be explained, is a place on the planet Earth, namely where Arabia or Havilah is today, eastward in Africa, Genesis chapter 2 and 8. This is where the body of the first man made of mud from the hollow grounds of Central East Africa was formed. The actions of his soul with his understanding, thinking, reasoning, and willing was given later. Upon this completion, the original African man became a living soul. It was there nearly 3 million years ago, the spirit of the great Father God, who was also made with Ish, and he became the deity made flesh. In truth, Ish became the Word, and the Word was God. Remember, we was talking about God, man, the Word made flesh, right? In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He, genderless, and made in the image and after the likeness of the Father God, was in fact God. What else could the Father of love make but of himself as far as images and likenesses go? Eden's garden planted eastward, and also describing the body of man, receiving the boundless spirit consciousness of his creator and finite use of the soul. These two gifts were placed in the center of the created man. His garden is made of pure thought activity, where things are made of thought. In the Hebrew language, Eden has the delightful garden of God. This is where man's will must be applied in the cultivation of his thoughts. Man's thoughts are either of choice flowers with perfumes or weeds of tumors. The term east and center are synonymous and interchangeable from a conscious point of view. This is why a true Muslim, yogi, Jew, or adept, etc., faces the self, the east, when praying, meditating, or otherwise communicating with their creator. So you see how my chairman, a real adept coming from the line of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he talking about that garden of Eden that's within you. When you face the east, you face the east within. You don't have to face a direction outside of the self. True east is within. The west is outside of you in all actuality. So it says, of course, some scholars call this degree of worship Sufism, occult, or even devil worshiping. Oh, but these are mere scholars still unaware of the infinite God state of their own God. See, he going in at these scholars just like they was going in at them scientists in the book I was just reading. It says, if these students would just remember everything conforms to its own nature. It say it is the nature of the mind to become God. Anyway, moving right along. Question 57, who are Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims. This is the question and answer of an American-born Egyptian adept master named Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali. All masters, prophets, angels, saints, and messengers using languages of wisdom, uniting divinity and matter. So what is the meaning of this question and its answer? In the darkness of misunderstanding, the very simple becomes most complex. In the light of understanding, the complicated becomes simple. We need to understand Adam and Eve so that we can better know ourselves. At this level of Adam and Eve, we must go into Emmanuel. As is the purpose of Adam and Eve, it is the comprehensive revelation to the gospel that the great God and man are one. In order to give maximum appreciation and value to a thing, one must know how it was put together and for what purpose. Anything made was structured in time, and time will also determine the longevity of its life before its purpose has ebbed. Man is the pride of all God's creation, Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 36, ayat 10. To not know the essence of Adam and Eve is to remain in darkness from the truth, human life. This darkness is no laughing matter. It is man's consciousness and self-imprisonment between the two illusions of carnal birth and death. Man needs to know his life is actually spent to build a temple of perfected man. This life is nothing but illusion, absorbed in the finite duration of time. This is only Maya, just simply a simple play of consciousness. If at any time the life of man began, the time would come when it would end. Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 1. So, the chairman make the emphasis on Adam and Eve being a symbol for the carnal body. Whereas you deal with Ish and Isha, they deal with the spiritual body. In fact, if you know anything about the biblical text, they talk about Adam Kadmon. And the Kadmon Adam, which means the original man, came, before this Adam was created, because even though it speaks of him in chapter 2, Genesis, 4 through 7, it said he came before plants and trees and all that existed. This is what we call flesh divine, being able to transmute at will. We talking about a celestial being, or as the book of Genesis itself would call it, when it say, let there be light, the word used for light means celestial being. It means luminary. So Adam Kadmon represents the pre-Adamite. You see, the time when we were able to be star seeds, so to speak. So when the Elohim will breathe forth, when they say, let us make man in our image, in spirit form, we were present during the time of that creation as spirit, because our spirit has always been a part of the creator. So when you see these symbols, when they talk about the Elohim, if you break it down, my breakdown, I always say eagle, lion, ox, and man, E-L-O-M, Elon, add the he or who, that is divinity. So if you're dealing with, depictions in the Kemetic teachings of the Neteru with the head, of the falcon, the head of the hawk, in the biblical, it became the eagle. The head of the lion, the body of the human, it represents the intelligence of that special creature. You see, saying that particular Neteru was a master of that quality. That's why you would see the head of a hawk or falcon upon the head of a man being Heru. All of these things symbolically represent principles, characteristics of these things, right? So if you had the eagle, lion, ox, and man concept given in the Bible, and they call them cherubim and seraphim, then man himself was present. And that man was basically Adam Kadmon, which consists of the union of Ish and Isha. You see? And so that was actually alluded to also in Genesis chapter 5. See, this stuff they ain't teaching you behind the scenes of what they have in the book. They don't teach this in the congregation. They don't preach this type of stuff here. They hide this knowledge. So in chapter 5, they say he created male and female and called their name Adam. So it looked like it's 3 different creations that's mentioned there. But all it is one portion belonged in the beginning on the first day, when it said the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep. You know, the darkness of the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. That was that churning of the universe. That was that turn. Scientists like to call it a Big Bang. In ancient Kemet, they say this is when the earth rose up from the waters of the Nile and Autumn became manifest. We know in the language that Autumn, that word, you know, in sound shifting, D is interchangeable with the letter T. You see, so they got that Autumn. You know, the Autumn is where the European got the atom concept. You see? So also when you go into the teachings of Buddhism and they speak of the Atma, you know, that original consciousness, that spiritual intelligence. See, that's what we was talking about in God, Man, the Word made flesh. So these are some powerful things, family. I can go on and on, but you know, I'm gonna shut it down right here, and I give honors to y'all who gave me your listening ear. You know, and this is how we demonstrate, family. We can go way beyond them other conversations we have with people, but we can never get to this type of information, you know, when people steady want to argue over what, you know, my nationality is, that they don't agree with. So I'm gonna keep doing this. Like I said, I'm gonna open up, you know, every time I throw the link in here for people that may want to come on the panel. It's already in the chat. I know it's late, but I'm gonna shut it down at this particular point. I didn't intend to come and go this long, but you know, when I'm driven by divinity, I feel like somebody meant that it was meant for somebody to get this. You know, in most cases, when I speak, you know, the measures that I give is destined for one to pick up on something that they maybe was trying to understand. You know, you could have been reading about this yesterday or whatever the case may be. And that's why I was given the attribute by my first enlightener, Shahid, you know, which means one who bear witness to the truth, you know. So a lot of times, and he gave that to me because he would be speaking, giving a khutbah, a sermon, getting ready to write one and prepared it. I would speak to him and he said, man, you been reading my notes? And I hadn't been reading his notes, you know, but we say in the Moorish American government, if you don't want a more to know, don't thank you. Because you put it out there in the ethers, your thoughts become manifest. So, yeah, I'm just here to bring clarity to our people. So with that being said, family, peace, love, and law. We love you, you know, and I'm going to keep bringing these teachings to you. You know, y'all get y'all some rest because I'm getting ready to do the same thing. Gratitude to the family. Peace and love.